Part 43. Adorable Baby, The Miracle Doctor is So Awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 421. Spiritual power is the life of a monk. Without spiritual power, a monk's strength is equivalent to being weakened by 99%, making people very insecure. So even though there are many monks in the outside world who can draw talismans, no one can draw them easily. Can't afford it? Where can someone like Shenyazi drink from the spiritual spring? Never worry about the consumption of spiritual energy. On the raft, even though the invisible rabbit came to the edge, it did not attract any attacks from the sharks. Seeing this, Mentianyu changed his words again. Sister Shen, since I am in the same team as everyone else, I should advance and retreat with everyone. So I decided to cross the river with you. As soon as he said these words, he received not only a blank stare, but collective contempt. But Mentianyu doesn't care about this. He has already lost enough face in front of everyone anyway. As long as he can get benefits, it doesn't matter if he loses more face. I have to say that Mentianyu is still very adaptable. Sisters Hizi, can we cross the river now? Kuiyu asked. Shenyazi, don't worry, I'll do another experiment. It's better to try a few more times in advance than to encounter an unexpected situation on the river. The raft is too crude and the safety factor is too low. And is there only one kind of fish in Chennai River, shark? What if they are attacked by other big fish on the way? With a slight bump from the big fish, they and the raft would probably be knocked over, and they would be close to death. Shenyazi dragged the raft back, tied it under the sky boat, tied it tightly with another dragon tendon, put an invisibility charm on the sky boat, and lowered the raft. With the help of the raft, Tianzhou floats safely on the water. In this way, the safety factor is greatly increased. Shenyazi made a lot of preparations. Seeing that it was getting dark, it was obviously not suitable to cross the river at this time, so he said, let's rest for one night, and we will set off early tomorrow morning. A few people skillfully raised the bonfire and prepared to eat. Brother, a surprised female voice suddenly sounded. As soon as Mentianyu turned around, he saw his third sister standing there, and he immediately ran over happily. Third sister. Mentianjiao caught the little brother who was rushing towards him, pulled him up and down, checked him up and down, and pinched his face. Is it my imagination? Why do you feel like you've gained weight? Mentianyu thought to himself, the rice cooked by Sister Shen is so delicious, and martial arts training consumes a lot of money. Now he can survive for several days with just one meal. How can he not gain weight? Mentianyu told Min Qianjiao about his recent experience in a boastful tone. Min Qianjiao looked towards Shenyazi with complicated eyes. Shenyazi couldn't bear it anymore and looked away. Speaking of it, she also had a bad relationship with Min Qianjiao. At a lantern festival, she dressed up as a man and wore a masculine mask on her face, and then the hero saved Min Qianjiao's beauty. Min Qianjiao secretly loved her from then on. Shenyajin knew that he would not deceive her feelings, so he directly confessed his identity as a woman. Min Qianjiao was hurt for a while, but later she started to develop towards Lily. Shenyazi felt that he had sinned deeply and tried his best to avoid meeting her. The reason why I brought Min Tianyu with me this time was because of Min Qianjiao's face. Otherwise she would have left him in the woods to die. Gigi, I have been busy retreating for a while, and I didn't realize you were back. Why didn't you look for me? Min Qianjiao came to Shenyazi and stared at her with a pair of unparalleled peach blossom eyes. To be honest, Shenyazi quite likes Min Qianjiao, as a friend. However, she wanted to be friends with Min Qianjiao, but Min Qianjiao wanted to develop a disharmonious relationship with her. This gave her a headache. Smiling unnaturally, Shenyazi pretended to be calm. I'm coming back at the end of the year, so I can't disturb you. You will never be a bother to me. Min Qianjiao's voice became gentler. Shen Yi knew that goosebumps were rising, so he laughed twice. Kui Yu watched with surprise from the side. This was the first time she saw sisters Hizzy looking so helpless. Well, how was your harvest in the secret realm? Shen Yizi forcibly changed the subject. Min Qianjiao had a smile in her eyes. Not bad. What about you? How about I transfer some contribution points to you? Shen Yizi's breath-containing technique has always been hanging on, and in the eyes of others, he is just a mortal. Min Tianyu became jealous when he heard this. Third sister, why didn't you tell me to give some to my brother? Min Qianjiao glanced at him and said, I didn't agree with you coming in the first place. It was you who insisted that you come here to practice. Since it is a practice, you have to rely on yourself. What do you mean by asking me to transfer contribution points to you? Min Tianyu, this is really my sister. It would be outrageous to give it to him, but Shen Yizi was eager to give it to her. Why is there such a big difference in treatment between people? After teaching her brother a lesson, Min Qianjiao turned to look at Shen Yizi expectantly. Shen Yizi, ahem, no need, I've saved a lot. Well, you can come to me anytime if you want. Min Qianjiao took her hand and shook it gently. Shen Yizi jerked his hand away as if he had been burned. Immediately, I saw Min Qianjiao lowering her eyes with a hurt look on her face. Min Qianjiao is just like her name, and she is very charming and beautiful. How could Shen Yizi's conscience cope with seeing such a charming girl dejected in front of him? Are you hungry? I have a lot of delicious food here, including crab roe buns, octopus balls, spicy rabbit heads, honey-glazed chicken legs, lamb chops. Every time Shen Yizi thought of something, he took out the same thing and put it on the table. Min Qianjiao's darkened eyes suddenly glowed again. I'm hungry, I want to have a taste. Okay, you can eat whatever you want, I have a lot more here. Seeing that Min Qianjiao turned her attention to eating, Shen Yizi breathed a sigh of relief. Turning around, he saw Kui Yu and others staring at him teasingly. She gave them an annoyed look. The night sky, bonfires, and delicious food all come together to naturally arouse people's emotions. It has been nearly half a month since I entered the secret realm. I have always been in a tense state and need to always be wary of monsters. There are no monsters and beasts by the Chennai River. It is a rare pure land. Everyone relaxed unconsciously. Plus, the people gathered here at the moment are all young people, so it's natural to get excited. Eat meat, drink wine, chat and laugh. It's rare to indulge. Perhaps he was attracted by the movement here, and several waves of people came from behind. For a time, the Shenyu River became lively. Several waves of people who followed settled nearby, also lit bonfires and grilled meat. Having been here for more than 10 days, everyone has more or less some inventory. However, some people roast the same meat so fragrantly that people want to grab it directly, while others can roast it until it is so burnt that it is impossible to eat it at all. By the campfire, Shen Yizi nonchalantly brushed the sauce on a fat rabbit and silently moved it to the side, further away from Min Qianjiao. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 422. Gigi, you have been away for 4 years, and I thought you would never come back. Min Qianjiao came closer and looked at the bonfire. Shen Yizi, how could it be? Qiandao Lake is my home, how could I never go back? Feeling Min Qianjiao's warmth against him, Shen Yizi felt uncomfortable all over and complained in his heart. God, who will save me? If a man was pestering her like this, she would have punched him away long ago, but when it came to a beauty like Min Qianjiao, she couldn't be cruel. It would be great if Goosewitting was here. Thinking of Goosewitting, Shen Yizi also thought of the 3 Qing treasures. Yes, how could she forget this treasure? Shen Yizi quickly took out the photo stone, pulled out the videos and photos of Goosewitting and Qingbao, and showed them to Min Qianjiao. Qian Xiao, I'm married, and he is my husband. These are a pair of babies born to me and him, Qingbao and Yuanbao. They are twins, don't they look alike? Shen Yizi pointed to the three people on the shadow stone and introduced them one by one. On the photo stone is a family portrait. Gu Swiding is holding Shen Yizi in his arms. Qingbao and Yuanbao are sitting on their laps respectively. The man is handsome and the woman is beautiful. The two children Yu Shui are very similar in appearance and cute. The four members of the family all have cheerful smiles on their faces, and they look like a happy family at first glance. When introducing them, Shen Yizi smiled unconsciously on his face. Min Qianjiao looked at it, feeling a little sour in his heart, but mostly happy for her. Qingbao and Yuanbao are so cute. When you get out of here, you must bring them to me. Well, okay. Min Qianjiao's performance was a bit beyond Shen Yizi's expectations. She thought she would question her and lose control, but she didn't. Instead, she turned her attention to Qingbao and the others, looking at them with clear eyes. The earth is filled with love. Sure enough, cute things are healing. Shen Yizi breathed a sigh of relief and happily shared various photos and videos of Qing and Bao with her. The two people leaned their heads together, staring at the photo stone, laughing from time to time. Girl, your barbecue is so fragrant, could you sell some to me? A little fat man with fair skin came over and asked Shen Yizi. From time to time, his eyes drifted to the sizzling oily meat on the grill, and he secretly swallowed his saliva. Shen Yizi handed the photo stone to Min Qianxiao, stood up, picked up a knife and cut off a large piece of barbecue, put it on a large plate with green vegetable leaves, and handed it over. It's just a little barbecue, I'll treat you to it. The little fat man took it over in surprise. Thank you, girl. My name is Gu Wei, what do you call me? Shen Yizi. Shen Yizi. Gu Wei murmured softly, feeling that the name was very familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere. Suddenly he remembered, ah, you are the owner of Villa Shen. My cousin mentioned you in the letter she wrote to me. She said that there are many novelties and all kinds of delicious things in your Minjiao villa. Yes, she also sent me some food. After I ate it, I couldn't forget it. I was also thinking about going there in person sometime to see if it was true as she said. I didn't expect to see her here. To Lord Shen. Gu Wei said with elation and excitement beyond words. Shen Yizi asked, who is your cousin? Gu Wei grinned and said, Bai Xiaoshu. He couldn't wait to take a big bite of the meat. Although it was a little hot, it was so delicious that it was touching. Shen Yizi smiled and said, so it's her. Since it was old, she simply asked someone to sit down. Gu Wei was eager to follow Kui Yu's example and roll up the slices of meat with pancakes and vegetables to eat. The look of a few people enjoying the food was like a collective eating and broadcasting scene, and the people not far away were hungry. Seeing that the little fat man came to beg for food successfully and stayed, the others were also ready to make a move. Girl, I'm so hungry that I can't bear it anymore, please give me some barbecue. When there is one, there are two, and a group of people cheers and gathers around. Yes, you have so much barbecue that you won't be able to finish it all, so share some with us. Some even get started and want to serve the whole roast directly. Shen Yizi's eyes darkened. Was he trying to take advantage of the strength of the crowd to grab food? Little frog. The little frog became as big as a table in the blink of an eye, flicking its tongue to fly away everyone who came up to grab the food. Ah, everyone fell to pieces. Shen Yizi stood up. Kui Yu stopped eating and stood behind her, glaring at those people fiercely. Gu Wei was one step behind and was reluctant to part with the meat in his hand, so he simply took it and ran over. Shen Yizi released his pressure and looked around coldly. If you want to eat meat, you can buy it from me with your contribution points. If you want to grab it, you have to ask me about the hammer in my hand. She took out the star breaker, which suddenly grew in size and hit the big tree next to it. The big tree that could hold 3 or 4 people hugging fell straight down. This move makes many people feel fearful. Min Qianjiao looked at her cool and valiant appearance, her eyes filled with stars, and her admiration almost overflowed. Then why doesn't he buy it? A person in the crowd shouted at Gu Wei with an angry tone. Gu Wei was gnawing on the meat in his hand when he suddenly lay down on his gun and blinked his eyes in confusion. Shen Yizi sneered, "This is my barbecue. I can feed it to whoever I want. Do you care?" The person who just shouted had a hard look in his eyes, but he was worried about her strength and did not dare to act rashly. With the little frogs watching over him, Shen Yizi ignored them and continued to cook delicious food. This group of people reminded her that she had a lot of food in her hand, and she might be able to take the opportunity to earn some contribution points from them. These people might not be able to have a good meal after entering the secret realm. And if she didn't cook the food herself, wouldn't it be an ordinary delicacy, and it would cause these people to rob it without seeing it? When the time comes, she doesn't believe they can withstand the attack of delicious food, and they will have to spend their contribution points sooner or later. Cook, fry, roast, stew, and stew. Shen Yizi showed off his 18 cooking skills and started a cooking feast in front of everyone. The aroma hovered over the entire camp, tempting everyone's stomachs. Even a saint would be unable to sit still if he smelled this kind of fragrance, right? What makes Shen Yizi even more angry is that a group of people are still eating there with gusto, which makes the others scratch their heads. "I want to buy this barbecue, how many contribution points are there?" A strong man stepped forward. He was asking about the roasted earth mole beast. 100 contribution points per caddy. Shen Yizi quoted the price. So expensive? The strong man was secretly speechless. He worked hard to hunt down a monster, and he would probably be able to get a few dozen contribution points, but now a pound of barbecue costs 100 points, how can he afford it? Reason made him turn around and leave, but his feet had a will of their own and stayed in place as if they were rooted, refusing to move no matter what. He gritted his teeth and said, "Give me, half a caddy." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 423. This kind of meat cutting work is naturally not Shen Yizi's turn to do it. Jia, you come to cut the meat. Jia, you are responsible for collecting the contribution points. The strong man transferred 100 contribution points to Jia's jade card. After getting the barbecue, he couldn't wait to take a bite. Others couldn't help but cast their eyes over. Seeing him froze after taking a bite, someone couldn't help but ask, "How does it taste?" The strong man did not speak, but told them the answer with practical actions. He ate so voraciously that he didn't even lift his head. Half a kilogram of meat was eaten quickly, but he felt that he had not eaten enough at all. "Give me 2 more pounds. Is this man stupid? How long will he have to work for 100 contribution points? He only spends a few kilograms of meat. Who doesn't have meat? If you want to eat it, you can just roast it yourself. Why spend so much money to buy it? That is." However, looking at the strong man buying again and again, and smelling the aroma of meat coming over, some people couldn't hold it anymore. "Grandma is short of legs anyway, this contribution point is for nothing. Whether I can go to Penglay Pavilion to exchange for treasures is another matter. Now I have enough food. First, give me a pound too. How do you sell this beggar's chicken? Give me one of these. This wine smells good enough. No matter how much you contribute, give me a jar. 2, 3, 4, more and more people can't resist the temptation of delicious food and join the food shopping crowd. Fortunately, Shen Yizi had a lot of people here. Min Tianyu and the others were all recruited by her, and each one of them looked after a stall. She concentrates on cooking delicious food. With the Chang Randing as a gourmet cheating device, I was finally able to barely meet the needs of everyone. The scent of Chenyu River spreads in circles, attracting many people to come here. The smell of food means that there are people, whether friends or foes, who are of the same kind and can give people a sense of security. In addition to humans, there were also many monsters and beasts attracted by the scent. However, these monster beasts are full of awe of Shen Yuhi and do not dare to approach easily. But as time goes by, there is no guarantee that they will not take risks. For the sake of safety, Shen Yuzi still took the time to set up layers of formations on the outside to isolate the smell and sound, and at the same time, it also had a certain defensive effect. She also released the small frogs, the Amityvilla and the leeches, allowing them to roam freely and hunt monsters. Anyway, it's a contribution point delivered to your door. In the camp, the food carnival lasted until past 11 o'clock in the evening. Everyone who had eaten, drank, and was bleeding profusely returned to his or her seat to rest. Shen Yazi and the others excitedly got together to share the spoils. No, it was to share the contribution points. They expected to earn a lot when they were too busy, but when they actually aggregated and saw the actual data, they couldn't help but feel a sense of unreality. In just half a night's work, you earned nearly 50,000 contribution points. It was almost worth what they had earned from hunting monster beasts in the past. The power of delicious food cannot be underestimated. Several people handed over their contribution points to Shen Yazi. They understand that this contribution has little to do with them. It is all earned by Shen Yazi. They are just making a start. Moreover, based on the price of these foods, they have eaten a lot of contribution points. However, Shen Yazi still transferred 1,000 contribution points alone, and even Gu Wei, who joined temporarily, also transferred 1,000 contribution points. She stopped talking before they refused. Follow me and you will have meat to eat. How can I let you work in vain all night? If you don't accept it, then I will not dare to use you in the future. She said what she said. How could anyone still refuse? Kui Yu looked at the number of contribution points displayed on her jade plaque and was overjoyed. Before meeting Sisters Hizi, let alone her contribution in those days, it was considered good if she could save her life. But now, not only has her cultivation improved, her strength has increased, and she has contribution points, but most importantly, she can also eat delicious food cooked by Sisters Hizi every day. Happiness is so great. Others thought the same thing, looking at Shen Yazi with bright eyes. If there was a tail behind him, it would probably be wagging. For a moment, Shen Yazi was almost overwhelmed by the disgusting looks of several people. Okay, it's getting late, everyone, let's go to bed early. Shen Yazi walked to a big tree, sat down cross-legged, closed his eyes and meditated. The others were gathered around her, sitting or lying down. It is quiet in the dead of night. The full moon in the sky shines on the river. The Shanai River, which was originally as calm as a mirror, suddenly became turbulent. A huge black shadow swims underwater. Shen Yazi seemed to be aware of something, but when she opened her eyes and came to the river, she saw nothing. She looked up at the sky. She had been in the secret realm for more than 10 days, and the moon had always remained full. It is probably a fake moon. Shen Yazi, I'm back. Come on, get me something to eat. I'm starving to death. Shen Yazi turned around, caught the spirit crystal beast that rushed into his arms, and stroked its feathers. Have you brought all the spirit jade back? What's the point? If I take action, what else can't be done? Great job, show it to me. Shen Yazi casually set up a magic array and a soundproof barrier. The spirit crystal beast shook its wings, and the spirit jade fell down piece by piece, quickly forming a hill. Shen Yazi was filled with joy and excitement. He picked up the spirit crystal beast and kissed it on the head. Baby, you are great. The spirit crystal beast was stunned, and a dreamily beautiful flower bloomed on its head. Shenyazi quickly took out a mirror and showed it to it. A flower actually bloomed on my head. The spirit crystal beast touched the flower with its wings and picked it off. Shenyazi's eyes were straight, but he could still pick this flower? Didn't it just disappear before? Seeing her staring at the flower, the spirit crystal beast handed it to her. Here, if you like it, I'll give it to you. Shenyazi kept it in a jade box. This is the flower that blooms on the head of the spirit crystal beast. It is definitely extraordinary and may be of great use in the future. The spirit crystal beast kept shaking its wings, and the spirit jade came out batch after batch. Shenyazi would be excited at first, but as time went by, he became pessimistic. When the spirit crystal beast took out all the spirit jade, Shenyazi touched its head and said, "Thank you for your hard work, all this food is yours." She waved her hand, and a pile of food appeared on the ground. Asterisk. 1 drop of the green-scaled snake's venom can kill a giant elephant. Mankan fruit. The sweet and juicy mankan fruit can also beautify the skin. Porcupine tusks can be used to refine weapons. By the Chenyu River, the people gathered here set up stalls to trade their harvests. Can be bartered or purchased with contribution points. This is obviously inspired by Shenyazi. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 424. Some people had their pockets emptied by the delicacies she cooked last night, so they had to take out their inventory to earn some contribution points. Some people felt that there was no hope of crossing the river, so they simply gave up and took the opportunity to collect various materials. Go outside and sell. In addition to those selling various things, there are also people asking to form a team and cross the river together. Various sounds are mixed together, just like a small market. Shenyazi walked around and found a lot of things that interested him. She exchanged it for food. Her delicious food has become famous here, and all the stall owners are very happy to barter with her. Shenyazi also took the opportunity to advertise his Minjaya villa to attract traffic to Mocking City, which was still under construction. After shopping, Shenyazi also set up a stall, but this time what he sold was not delicacies, but talismans and elixirs. Dust-avoiding talisman, fire talisman, wind and thunder talisman, invisibility talisman. Bigo pill, rejuvenation pill, rejuvenation pill. Everyone is familiar with talismans and elixirs, but this is the first time for many people to actually come into contact with them. After Shenyazi demonstrated the effects of talismans and elixirs, everyone was excited. One more talisman means one more combat power, one more pill might mean one more life. Buy it, you must buy it. Even if you lose all your money, you still have to buy it. Soon, circles and circles of people gathered in front of Shenyazi's stall. Everyone held up their own jade signs and squeezed in as hard as they could, for fear that they would not be able to buy it if it was too late. Fortunately, Xiaoben and a few others helped maintain order, so nothing went wrong. A talisman can contribute at least 100 points, and a pill can contribute at least 300 points. Shenyazi earns contribution points by being soft-handed. Many people saw her booming business. Wealth touches people's hearts. In this secret realm, the point of contribution is currency, which is real money. She has made so much money, and many people have their thoughts wandering. However, some people think that their cultivation is low, and even if their eyes are hot, they have to suppress their thoughts. But some people want to take risks and take risks. Give me 10 fire talismans. A big-faced man came to the stall. 10 pieces at one time. Shenyazi glanced at the person in front of him, counted 10 fire talismans and handed them to him. At the same time, hand over your jade token so that he can transfer the contribution points. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the man suddenly snatched her jade token, activated the fire talisman he had just received, threw it at her, turned around and ran away. The fire spread and hit Shen Yizi overwhelmingly. Everyone couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise and stepped back one after another. Shen Yizi seemed to be frightened and stood motionless. Sisters Hizi, Kuiyu wanted to rush over to save her, but in the end it was a step too late. Who would have thought that the next second, the fire would go out automatically when it touched Shen Yizi's body. After the fire went away, Shen Yizi stood there intact, his eyes were cold, and the corners of his mouth curved into something that looked like a smile but not a smile. He actually used the talisman she drew against her? I really don't know whether I should call that person stupid or ignorant. Doesn't he know that the talisman drawn by the talisman master will never backfire on the talisman master himself? Of course, she only found out about this after joining Master Luo's disciples, and ordinary people have no way of knowing this. Shen Yizi's body swept over and he was behind the man in the blink of an eye. The vines shot out from his hand and he dragged him back with a strong force. Unexpectedly, at this moment, he suddenly threw the jade token in his hand towards Shen Yuhi. If the jade tablet really fell into the river, I'm afraid it will never be recovered. This person can't get it herself, and she won't let her take it back. At this moment, Shen Yizi was really angry. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the spirit crystal beast flew over and grabbed the jade token. Shen Yizi breathed a sigh of relief. The man took the opportunity to cut off the vines and slapped her with his palm. The palm turned out to be black, obviously poisonous. The fireball skill in her hand was instantaneous, and blazing fireballs as big as basketballs hit him one after another. The man had to avoid it, but Shen Yizi didn't give him a chance to breathe, and launched another wind blade technique, with several wind blades slashing at him from all directions. To cast a spell, others need to mobilize the spiritual energy in their body, plus recite the incantation and form seals. Even if they are extremely proficient, it will take several breaths of time. But she doesn't need it, it's instant every time. Fireballs, wind blades, ice picks, thunder and lightning, all kinds of spells were thrown at the man without using spiritual power. The big-faced man was stunned. He didn't expect her to be so tough. Finally, Shen Yizi kicked him to the ground, and before he got up, he broke his legs with a hammer. The man let out a miserable scream of pain. Shen Yizi looked at him coldly, the anger in his heart still not subsided. The spiritual crystal beast flew over, held the jade token in front of her, and asked for credit. Look, if it weren't for me this time, all the contribution points you earned before would have been in vain. Well, thank you. Shen Yizi took the jade sign and took out a bowl of braised beef and fed it to it. Kuiyu ran over. Sisters Hizi, are you okay? Min Qianjiao looked at her worriedly. Shen Yizi shook his head, it's him who's in trouble. Min Tianyu flexed his knuckles as he walked up to the big-faced man, stepped on the back of his hand and crushed it hard. You are very brave if you dare to take advantage of our sister Shen. Xiaobai came over and asked, Miss Shen, how should we deal with this person? This means to do it for her so as not to dirty her hands. Throw it into Shenyu River, Shen Yizi said coolly. No, the big-faced man looked horrified. There was also a commotion in the crowd, and one person stood up to persuade, Miss Shen, I think it's better to forget it. Once he is thrown into the Shenyu River, he will be dead. Look, you have nothing to lose, right? You have to be merciful and let him go. Shen Yizi almost laughed angrily. If she hadn't drawn those fire talismans, she might have been burned to ashes by now. If the spirit crystal beast hadn't reacted quickly, her jade token would have been thrown into the Chennai River, and all her previous efforts would have been in vain. Now this person actually stood up and asked her to be spared and spared? Who does he think he is? The key point is that there are actually people who agree with it. Yes, Miss Shen, you broke someone's legs and then threw him into the Shenyu River. This is too cruel. You think, it's so hard to stand and talk, it's not you who's been robbed of your love card, right? Kuiyu was so angry that she yelled. "What are you talking about, little girl? I'm just saying something fair." Just as Kuiyu was about to fight back, Shenyazi stopped her and said, "A bunch of idiots, ignore them. Jia, what are you still doing?" Without saying a word, Jia picked up the big-faced man and threw him into the Shenyu River. The man sank deeply into the water, causing only a small splash. This scene undoubtedly had a huge impact on everyone. They looked at Shenyazi with a little more fear. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 425. The Shenai River is so long that no one knows where it ends. So people who arrived at the river did not try to take a detour, but tried to find a way to cross the river. As for the characteristics of Shenyuhi, everyone knows it. Even if you don't know it, you will know it after walking around the camp a few times and getting close to people. So the question before everyone now is, how to cross the river? The secret that Jianmu can float on the river is not known to everyone, only to a few people. After trying various methods, many people gave up and concentrated on doing business in the camps along the river. But some people were not discouraged and refused to admit defeat, and were determined to cross the river to Penglay Pavilion in the center. Such people have become Shenyazi's potential customers. Anyway, a once-over crossing is a crossing, and a two-way crossing is still a crossing. Why not take the opportunity to earn some fairy fares? But this time she did not take the initiative to greet them. Rather than trying her best to win the trust of these people and make them believe that she could take them across the river, it would be better for them to come and ask her to take them. Shenyazi took out the sky boat with a wooden raft tied underneath, put it on the shore, and called Kuiyu and others, "Let's go, cross the river early and go to Penglay Pavilion to exchange treasures." She didn't tell a few people about her plans. Kuiyu thought she was really ready to leave and jumped onto the boat excitedly. Min Tianyu pulled Min Xiao, third sister, "Let's go." Xiaoben and Jia followed closely behind. Gu Wei was left standing where he was, wondering whether he should follow him or not. "Shenyazi, what are you doing standing around? Get on the boat." Gu Wei scratched the back of his head, showed a silly smile, and climbed onto the boat. Kuiyu looked at his clumsy look, chuckled, and stepped forward to give him a hand. Just when Shenyazi turned around and was about to get on the boat, someone finally couldn't help it anymore and said, "Miss Shen, please stay." Shenyazi turned around, and the person who spoke was a middle-aged man wearing a long gown. His manner was gentle and elegant, and he seemed to be a scholar. "Miss Shen, is there any way to cross the river? Didn't you already see it?" The man was a little embarrassed. "I have a gracious request. I wonder if I can ask Miss Shen to take me on the next journey. Of course, I will pay my contribution points for the ship fare." After saying that, he looked at Shenyazi nervously and expectantly, for fear that she would refuse. Shenyazi naturally would not refuse, but he still pretended to think deeply. "Okay, 500 contribution points." The man breathed a sigh of relief, bowed deeply to her, gave her a contribution point, jumped up, and landed lightly on the deck. Some people took the lead, and others couldn't help but come forward to ask. Shenyazi let 2 more people board the boat. She has tested that the raft can carry a dozen people at most. If there are any more, the raft will sink. "Miss Shen, I'll give you 600 contribution points. Please let Maine get on the boat." "I'll pay 800. Everyone rushed to squeeze in front of her, but because of the sinking incident that happened yesterday and the little frog lying aside and watching eagerly, no one dared to act boldly. Shenyazi raised his hand and said, "Everyone, please be patient. I will send all the people in this boat to the other side and then come back to pick you up." "Really? Miss Shen, you can't leave us behind." "Don't worry, I won't let my contribution go unearned." Shenyazi flew onto the boat and put an invisibility charm on the boat. In an instant, the people in the boat and the boat disappeared from everyone's eyes. She steered the sky boat to slide out and landed on the river. There was an obvious sinking feeling, but fortunately the Jianmu raft was able to hold it. She raised the protective shield and drove the sky boat forward. The raft is tied to the bottom of the boat. When the Tianzhou moves forward, the raft will naturally be carried along with it. As long as there is a raft to support it, there is no risk of sinking into the water. This trip across the river was surprisingly smooth, and we reached the other side smoothly. Shen Yizi went ashore first and brought the people off the boat. The 3 boat passengers bowed their hands to her and left impatiently. Shen Yizi withdrew his gaze from them and looked at Min Qianjiao and the others. "You don't have to wait for me, you can leave on your own." Min Tianyu was the first to object. "How about that, Sister Shen? I'm committed to you, don't try to throw me away." Shen Yizi said calmly, "Now that you have met your third sister, why are you still following me? I don't want to be held back by you. Kuiyu is Nianyan's niece. She is willing to take her with her, but the others just happen to be traveling together for a while. Is it possible that she still has to take them with her?" Min Tianyu clutched his chest, feeling as if he had been hit by an arrow. "Sister Shen, you actually dislike me. As long as you know." Shen Yizi looked around at the few people and smiled slightly. "The inner circle of the secret is definitely much more dangerous than the outer circle. You should be careful. This is the treasure bag I prepared for you. It contains some food. Go ahead." She was given a treasure bag by herself. In addition to food, there were also some talismans and elixirs in it, which were all very practical things. Min Qianjiao put the treasure bag close to her body, looked at her deeply, and left with Min Tianyu and Jia de Jia Er. "Xia Ben, take care, Miss Shen. I hope I can sit down with Miss Shen to drink tea and chat after I leave here." Gu Wei was very reluctant to leave, but he also knew that he had no position to continue following her. He took out a long jade pendant from his kinkan bag and handed it over. "Sister Shen, if you go to the imperial capital in the future, you must come. Prince Jin's mansion came to play with me." He introduced himself to his family. Shen Yizi was slightly surprised and accepted the jade pendant. "Okay." In the end, only Shen Yizi and Kuiyu were left. Shen Yizi took her back on the boat and went to the other side of the river to pick up people. "I made 7 or 8 trips, but everything was calm. On the last trip, Shen Yizi's originally tense heartstrings couldn't help but relax. However, when the boat sailed to the middle of the river, she felt a thump in her heart. An island appeared out of thin air on the originally wide and empty river. "No, that's not an island, that's a huge turtle shell." Shen Yizi hurriedly turned the ship's bow, but it happened to run into a huge mouth. "Ah!" Shen Yizi didn't even have time to react before his eyes fell into darkness. Kuiyu hugged her arm tightly and said in a trembling voice, "Sisters Hizi. Don't be afraid, I'm here." Shen Yizi held her hand. Tianzhou seemed to be sliding rapidly down a pipe, with occasional bumps along the way. Shen Yizi took out the luminous stone, and the cabin was illuminated, revealing the frightened faces of the passengers. "Have we been swallowed by some monster?" No one answered. Everyone looked at Shen Yizi. "Miss Shen, what should we do now?" Shen Yizi's face was calm. If the last resort came, she would take these people and hide in her space. But this is a last resort and she will not do it easily. "Wait. Wait," everyone was confused by her word. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 426. Slided for a while, the ship fell suddenly, as if it had fallen into some liquid, and then there was a sizzling sound of being corroded. Didn't they fall into the stomach of the monster? Shenyazi took a look at the luminous stone and saw a strange light all around, with a thick green liquid dripping from the top. As soon as it came into contact with the protective shield held up by Tianzhou, a hole was corroded. This liquid is so corrosive. Fortunately, the protective cover quickly closed again, preventing the liquid from falling in. But as a result, the spiritual crystal that was previously embedded on the control panel was also severely consumed, and it was shrinking at a speed that was almost visible to the naked eye. Shenyazi felt a pain in his body. This spiritual crystal is used less than 1. Originally, according to the normal consumption rate, it can be used for at least a few months, but now I'm afraid it won't be able to withstand it for an hour. You all stay in the cabin and don't come out, Shenyazi warned, came outside the cabin, operated on the control panel, and finally pressed spirit cannon. In addition to flying and defending, Tianzhou can also attack. Just using the spiritual light cannon once would consume a large amount of spiritual stones. She couldn't afford to use them before. Now that she has spiritual crystals in hand, why would she keep them if she doesn't need them? A dark gun barrel stretched out from the bow of the ship. Following Shenyazi's command, 90% of the spiritual crystals in the control panel were consumed in the blink of an eye, and the spiritual light cannon was fired. A dazzling light flashed through, and the surrounding area became frighteningly bright. Including Shenyazi, everyone on the boat subconsciously closed their eyes. To her surprise, although the spiritual light cannon was powerful, it made no sound during the whole process. There was a terrible silence all around. Time seems to have stopped flowing. For a moment, or maybe a few seconds, Shenyazi tried to open his eyes, and saw a large hole blasted out of the wall in front of him. The edges of the whole wall were burned black, and wisps of smoke came out. Ouch! A very penetrating scream sounded. It's like three-dimensional surround sound, squeezing in from all directions. No one in the boat could resist, they were knocked unconscious on the spot, and blood oozed from their ears. Shenyazi also had some energy and blood, trying to stabilize his body and drive Tianzhou away from the hole created. Finally, we stopped in a relatively clean and spacious cave. She refused to think about what kind of organ this cave was inside the monster's body. Shenyazi checked the situation of everyone on the boat and found that there was nothing serious, they just fainted. Just as she was about to get up, the sky and the earth began to spin around her, and the whole sky boat rolled. Hurrying to hold onto the pillars of the ship to steady his body. It was probably that the monster was rolling around in pain. The stomach has been penetrated, can it not hurt? Shenyazi showed no sympathy at all, and even released the ambrosia and leeches, letting them devour the flesh and blood of the monster from the inside. No matter how powerful a monster is, its body is still fragile. The ambrosia and the leech worked together and soon got into an organ of the monster beast and began to devour it. Soon, the monster's screams and howls came again. Fortunately, Shenyazi had placed a soundproof barrier on the ship in advance, otherwise the passengers who were stunned would have been shocked again. Stop, stop quickly, I'll let you out right now. Oh, it hurts me too. A young bass suddenly sounded in my mind. It was the monster that was transmitting messages to her consciousness. Shenyazi raised his eyebrows, can't he stand it? Ha, it's easy to invite gods but hard to send them away. If she hadn't had the spiritual crystal and spiritual light cannon, the entire crew of them would have been eaten by it. If she didn't peel off a layer of skin when she walked through the gate of hell, how could she be worthy of the spiritual crystal she consumed? It makes my heart hurt just thinking about it. Not only did Shenyazi not call back the ambrosia and leeches, he also gave them the order, suck it hard. Even though the monster beast is huge and has an astonishing amount of blood, it cannot withstand the ferocious devouring and blood-sucking of Amityville and leech. Reluctantly struggling to return to its cave at the bottom of the river, it changed back to its human form, clutching its stomach and howling in pain on the ground. What do you have to do before you stop? Shea how, pronounced Tung Hao, also known as the monster whirling turtle, made a miserable cry. Feeling that the flesh and blood in his body was decreasing rapidly, he was not only in unbearable pain, but also becoming weaker and weaker. He couldn't help but panic. Didn't hear Shen Yizi's answer, a sharp light flashed in his eyes. "Ah, I am willing to recognize you as my master, please stop." But he was thinking in his heart that this hateful human being is only in the chi refining stage, and no matter how strong his spiritual consciousness can be, he will definitely be far inferior to himself. When the time comes, he will become the master. He will definitely bear the pain he has endured. Pay back 100-fold. However, when the contract was actually concluded, Xiahao discovered that Shen Yizi's spiritual consciousness was indeed not strong. Although it was much stronger than monks of the same level of cultivation, it was still incomparable to him. But her consciousness was actually connected to a consciousness that was 100 times stronger than his. If he wanted to suppress her consciousness in turn, he would have to suppress that consciousness as well. Obviously, he does not have that kind of strength. So he could only watch as he formed a master-servant contract with her. Henceforth, he was controlled by her. Xiahao, does this count as digging a hole and burying himself? After signing the contract, Shen Yizi learned some information about the new demonic beast servant he had accepted. His name is Xiahao, and his species of monster is a spinning turtle. He is 1,869 years old this year. Compared to the long years of the turtle clan, he is still very young. Shen Yizi called back the devils weeping grass and leeches. This is the first time that they have swallowed and sucked blood so unscrupulously. Both of them are very satisfied. At the same time, I am also holding on a little. Xiahao is a 5th level demon, equivalent to the stage of human beings transforming into gods. His flesh and blood contain extraordinary spiritual power and are rich in nutrients. However, Amityville and leeches are only in the late 1st level, and they are already suffering from indigestion after swallowing them. If Xiahao could persist for a while, there would be no need to sign an unequal treaty. Shen Yizi collected the ambrosia and leech into the space and let them digest them properly. This time it may take a little longer. It is estimated that they will not be able to finish digesting it until she leaves the secret realm. "Okay, come out," Xiaohao's faint voice came into her mind. Shen Yizi looked at the people who were unconscious in the cabin and lit a stick of ecstasy to prevent them from waking up midway. He drove the sky boat upstream and flew out of Xiaohao's open mouth. When it landed, the Tianzhou had become normal size. Shen Yizi turned to look at Xiahao, and without any surprise, he met a face full of resentment. She smiled slightly and didn't care about him. "After all, I suddenly lost my freedom, so it's understandable that I'm a little emotional." She also expressed concern in the tone of her master. "I have lost so much blood and vitality, and I need to take good care of myself. You can rest first, and I will go for a walk. The cave of the 5th level demon must have a lot of treasures hidden, right?" Now that the whole beast was hers, the treasures naturally belonged to her as well. However, after actually walking around, Shen Yizi couldn't help but be disappointed. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 427. Xiaohao's cave is built under a piece of tortoise shell. The style is very simple and rough, which is far from the beautiful crystal palace in Shen Yizi's imagination. Same, he is a tortoise, not a dragon. It's okay if he doesn't live in a mud puddle. How can he be so particular about it? The inside and outside are spaces separated by some stones. The stones are shaped as they please. They are pitch black and have no sense of beauty at all. Apart from stones, they are just stones, cold and hard, not to mention treasures, not even a blade of grass. The style of 10,000 years of loneliness. So much so that when she found a pool in the innermost cave, she felt a little excited. The pool is about the size of a bed, with round black stones piled randomly underneath. There is a stone groove the size of a wash basin in the center of the pool, which contains a pool of water. To be precise, it is a drop of water. The water drops are incompatible with each other and exist independently of each other. It's too strange. Shen Yizi walked over and touched it. After the water droplets broke, they would condense back together. Don't move it, Xiahao rushed over, walking a little hastily. After saying this, he couldn't help coughing and his face turned red. What is this? Shen Yizi asked. Xiaohao's face looked a bit disgusting and he didn't want to tell her, but thinking about his current status, he didn't have the confidence to fight with her, so he reluctantly said 2 words, Chong Shui. Heavy water? Shen Yizi chewed it again. Trying to scoop one up, it turned out to be very heavy. Her hand suddenly sank, feeling as if the water droplet was about to penetrate the palm of her hand. What's the use of this heavy water? It's of no use, Xiahao said firmly. Shen Yizi smiled and said, it's useless and you put it here? Do you want me to pour it all on you? You, Xiahao glared at her angrily. This woman is so annoying. I brought this heavy water from the river's eye. It can extinguish strange fires, okay. As for why he wanted to extinguish the strange fire, he didn't say. Ordinary fire can be extinguished with ordinary water. However, strange fire is usually bred in a special environment. It has no roots and forms. Ordinary fire can do nothing. Only heavy water can overcome it. The trace of Phoenix true fire that Shen Yizi got from the Phoenix Glass Emperor is one of the strange fires. Up to now, the trace of true fire in her dantian has been cultivated to the size of a thumb. As soon as it was released, it was so scorching that the air was distorted. She pointed her finger at the heavy water in the groove, and a ball of real fire rushed over. But it was extinguished in an instant. This was the first time that Shen Yizi encountered something that could not be burned with real fire. If the enemy happened to have heavy water in his hand, wouldn't he be able to defeat her real fire to death? Looks like she has to study this heavy water. Shen Yizi took out the bottle to fill it. As soon as a drop was put in, the bottle was pierced by the heavy water, fell into the pool below, and sank directly to the bottom. It is still a single particle and does not mix with other water. Xiahao sneered, this heavy water cannot be contained in ordinary containers. The tone is leisurely, with the meaning of watching a good show. He was still thinking that if she came to ask, he would have to take the opportunity to make a request before telling her. Shen Yizi stroked his forehead and said, I was stupid. She took out the Starbreaker hammer, knocked a small piece of stone from the groove in front of Xiahao, and used the identification ball to identify it. Shen Yu stone, a third-order spiritual ore, can be used to construct a gravity field. This short sentence reveals a lot of information. Shen Yu he, could it be because of this Shen Yu stone? Is the gravity field the kind of field she imagined that could change gravity? If it can really be arranged, it will be convenient for body training in the future. At that time, a gravity classroom can be arranged in Minjiu Academy. If anyone is naughty, throw him into it. It can also be used to set up a formation to trap the enemy inside. Just imagine, when an enemy accidentally steps into a gravity field and is suddenly hit by several times the force of gravity, he will definitely be unable to bear it. He may fall to his knees on the ground, or he may be crushed to death on the spot. The more Shen Yizi thought about it, the more wonderful it became. Do you still have this Shen Yushi? Without waiting for Xiahao to refuse, she took out a plate of fragrant grilled fish. Want to eat? Xiahao smelled the attractive fragrance in the air, and his stomach growled unsatisfactorily. He had just woken up from a deep sleep and needed to eat a lot. As soon as he ate, he encountered Shen Yizi and almost died from the pain. Thinking of the suffering he had suffered before, he wanted to have the guts to refuse, but his eyes fell on the fragrant grilled fish and he couldn't pull it out. Here, Eat. Shen Yazi handed it over. So kind? Xiahao took the grilled fish, tore a piece off with his hands and put it into his mouth. The next second his eyes lit up. Delicious. 100 times more delicious than those monks. If he could eat such delicacies every day, why would he eat people? A plate of grilled fish quickly went into Xiaohao's stomach. He looked at the empty plate and licked his lips, still not satisfied. Shen Yazi smiled like a wolf grandma tempting Little Red Riding Hood. I have a lot more here. As long as you tell me where to find Shen Yashi, all the food will be yours. She waved her hand, and a table appeared with a pile of food on it. Just by smelling and looking at it, you know it must be delicious. Without hesitation, Xiahao pointed around. Here, those are all. He is referring to the stones used to build up stone walls. Those, all of them? Shen Yazi took a breath of cold air. The entire cave is built with third-level spiritual ore, which is beyond the description of a trench. It's simply inhumane. She was so blind at first that she thought this place was too shabby and had no treasures. She was wrong. These black stones in front of you are huge treasures. Where did you get these Shenyu stones? Shen Yazi looked at Xiahao with shining eyes. He ate without raising his head and said vaguely, there are them everywhere at the bottom of the river. Everywhere. Shen Yazi felt that a golden avenue was spreading out in front of him. Of course, only Xiahao, as a fifth-level great monster, can freely come and go at the bottom of the river. Other monsters that are not strong enough will have to bear the gravity doubled as they go down, and they will explode and die if they are not careful. Where can I dive to the bottom of the river? The bottom of the river is the base of a few big monsters. After Xiahao finished eating the food on the table, Shen Yazi asked him to take him ashore. The people on the boat were fed the antidote for the incense of ecstasy, and they woke up one after another. Ah, I'm not dead. Where is this place? Shen Yazi also pretended to have just woken up, looked around and said, we have reached the other side of the river. Although they don't know why they were swallowed by a monster and woke up on the other side of the river, no one wants to go into details. It's good to survive. Why do you think so much? Everyone said goodbye to Shen Yazi and left in twos and threes. Kuiyu took Shen Yazi's arm and said, Sisters Hizzy, let's go too. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 428. Shen Yazi looked towards the river. No hurry, let's go to a place first. At this moment, a huge black shadow emerged from the water, and then a huge head emerged. Shen Yazi, are you okay? However, in Kuiyu's ears, there was a loud and shocking roar. She was so frightened that she screamed, Sisters Hizzy, the monster is coming. Let's run. Shen Yazi pulled her and said, don't be afraid, that monster has been tamed by me and won't hurt us. He glared at Xiahao again and said, didn't I ask you to turn into a human form and come out again? You are afraid that others won't know about such a big battle, right? Those people on the opposite bank of the river were in a commotion, craning their necks to look this way. Xiahao curled his lips, transformed into a human form, crossed his arms across his chest, and walked over on the water. Kuiyu looked at him blankly, her mind a little confused. Such a big monster, a monster that can transform, was actually subdued by Sisters Hizzy? Weren't they swallowed by monsters before? How did Sisters Hizzy do it? Also, what happened after they were knocked unconscious? Kuiyu had so many questions in her mind that she didn't know how to speak for a while. Xiahao saw her staring blankly at him, and waved his hand in front of her, are you stupid? Kuiyu subconsciously shouted back, you are stupid. It wasn't until I finished the fight that I realized that the person in front of me was a great demon who could transform into another person. She actually attacked him. Pills. Kuiyu shrank behind Shen Yazi fearfully, Sisters Hizzy. Xiahao was quite angry at first, thinking that he, a powerful 5th level demon, would be contracted by a human in the chi refining stage, but now he was scolded by a weakling. Do you really think he has such a good temper? But after watching Kuiyu cowardly hide behind Shen Yizi after scolding her, only daring to show her eyes and look at him timidly, his anger miraculously disappeared, and he still had the urge to touch her head. Shen Yizi turned around and hugged Kuiyu into his arms. He stared at Xiaohao with warning eyes and comforted her softly, "Don't be afraid. He just looks fierce and doesn't dare to do anything to you, right Xiaohao?" Kuiyu's ears perked up. His name was Xiaohao? Xiaohao snorted angrily, "Let's go, it will get dark if we linger any longer." Grab one with each hand, protect Shen Yizi and Kuiyu within his own barrier, and take them into the water. The moment he entered the water, Kuiyu subconsciously closed his eyes and buried his head. After burying it, she found that the person she was burying was wrong. She was burying Xiaohao's chest. Xiaohao, whose chest was buried, looked down at the furry head in front of him, and covered it with his big hand, which made him bald. Kuiyu covered her head and glared at him, "What are you doing? The milk is fierce and the milk is fierce." Xiaohao deliberately grinned and showed his teeth to scare her, "If you keep staring at me, believe it or not, I will eat you." He fully expected that these words would frighten her. Unexpectedly, not only was she not afraid this time, she even smiled triumphantly at him. "Sisters," Hizzy said, "you don't dare to do anything to me, let alone eat me." Xiaohao. Shen Yizi watched the two bickering on the side, feeling as if they were chewing candy for some reason, and couldn't help but smile like a kind aunt. While diving all the way down, there were fish swimming by from time to time. Kuiyu was a little scared at first, but after discovering that the fish couldn't enter the barrier at all, she became bolder and even lay down on the barrier to look out with interest. She discovered that the bottom of the Shanai River was no different from other rivers. In fact, the difference is huge. It's just because she is now in the barrier arranged by Xiaohao and can't feel it. Upon arriving at the cave, Xiaohao looked at Shen Yizi eagerly. She said before that if he was obedient and did things for her, she would reward him with delicious food. Shen Yizi couldn't help but laugh, took out a roasted suckling pig and handed it over. Xiaohao took it and started chewing it. Kuiyu was very curious about this place just like Shen Yizi when he first came here. He looked around and touched it. "By the way, sisters Hizzy, why didn't you see Xiao Tian?" Shen Yizi, "I let it go. In fact, it is not, but it is sent into the space and provided with a bunch of food. Except for the warehouse and studio, it can come and go freely in other places. At the moment, it is lying on a spiritual fruit tree and eating a lot. It is very leisurely and comfortable. With enough food and drink, it has already laid, no, it has laid several spiritual crystal eggs. Lying in the grass glittering and translucent, not to mention very lovable." Shen Yizi immediately used his spiritual consciousness to roll up the eggs and sent them to the warehouse. When he came back to his senses, Xiaohao had already eaten the whole roasted suckling pig until only the bones were left. He was squatting there with a pig's trotter, chewing it with relish, and twirling his fingers. Shen Yizi felt a little blind. "I'll give you 2 tasks, collect more shenyushi and bring them back, and another one, hunt a large number of monsters in the river. If you do well, you can eat whatever you want." Xiaohao threw away the pig's trotter bone in his hand and rushed to her, seriously. After asking, I felt that this way of doing things really damaged his image as a great monster, as it made him seem to be pointing at the food workers. But after getting Shen Yizi's affirmative answer, he was so happy that flowers bloomed in his heart, and he ran out again in a hurry. 3 days passed in a flash. In the past 3 days, Shen Yizi drew talismans and made alchemy while Kuiyu studied food during the day, and practiced or studied heavy water at night. Xiaohao, a 5th level demon, will help you with the contribution points, so don't take it too easy. She was delighted to see the daily increase. Kuiyu also took advantage of her. The two of them lived a very leisurely life. How could they come here to experience fighting monsters? It's almost a vacation. Although Xiahao was treated as a coolie, he could enjoy countless delicacies every day, and he was extremely satisfied. So when Shen Yazi proposed to leave, he was very reluctant to leave. Why are you leaving so soon? If possible, Shen Yazi would like to stay forever, but today is already the 20th day after entering the secret realm, and everyone will be excluded in 10 days. She has to reach the Penglay Pavilion in the center of the secret realm before that, and put the jade into the secret realm. All the contribution points in the card can be exchanged for treasures. Otherwise, wouldn't it be in vain to save more contribution points? After getting along for a few days, Shen Yazi also developed some feelings for Xiahao. Seeing his frown, he asked, "How about you leave with us?" Xiahao would also like to, but he can't. "I can only stay in Chennai River, I can't adapt to other places." He has grown up in the Chennai River since he was a child. The special gravity environment of the Chennai River has created him, but at the same time it has also restricted him. Like those fish in the deep sea, they can't stand it once they come to land. Shen Yazi could only express regretfully, "Okay, then I'll leave you some more food. You can't forget to help us save contribution points. When we leave the secret realm, I will terminate the contract between us." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 429. Xiahao shook his head. "No, I am willing to continue to be a contracted beast for you. I might be able to find a way to leave here in the future, and I can still find you based on the contract." "Okay, it's settled, I'll take care of the food when you come." Shen Yazi patted him on the shoulder. Kuiyu also came to say goodbye to him. "Little Mouse, I'm leaving, don't miss me too much." Little Mouse is the nickname she gave Xiahao, and she deliberately used it to annoy him when they were bickering. "Humph, who would miss you, a short winter melon?" Xiahao covered her head with his big palm, despising her due to her height. They were about to separate, but the two of them didn't forget to bicker. Shen Yazi watched happily. Just like when he came, Xiahao held up the barrier and sent the two people ashore. Let's go, I'm going back to sleep. I've been so noisy by you these past few days that I can't sleep well." He waved to the two of them, turned around and submerged into the water. Faintly heard Kuiyu snort, "You stinking rat." The corners of his mouth couldn't help but curve. "When I returned to my cave, I felt a little too empty and deserted." It was obviously still the same cave, but he had never felt this way before. No, there are still some differences. There are a lot more feminine arrangements and decorations inside. It was all done by Shen Yazi and Kuiyu. Xiahao walked into his room. In the past, there was only a large stone bed. Now the bed was covered with thick and soft bedding. There were a few more wall lamps on the wall and a large cabinet filled with food. He looked around, his eyes a little brighter. "It seems we have to find a way to get out of here as soon as possible." In the past, he would occasionally have the idea of wanting to take a look outside, but usually he would not take action, just think about it when he was bored. But now, after tasting those delicious foods, meeting different people, and hearing them talk about the scenery outside, his heart, which had been home for more than 1,000 years, suddenly became alive. Once the heart is moved, it is difficult to suppress it. Asterisk. After leaving the Shenyu River, Shen Yazi originally wanted to use the Tianzhou to travel. Unexpectedly, the air was banned here, and the Tianzhou could not fly at all, so he could only use the number 11 bus. Fortunately, there are also light body talisman and divine movement talisman that can be used, and the speed is not slow. With Xiahao helping to collect contribution points, Shen Yizi just focused on walking quickly this time, leading Kuiyu towards the center of the secret realm. After more than an hour, the two of them had traveled 50 or 60 miles. Because he deliberately avoided monsters, there were no twists and turns along the way. At this time, a volcano appeared in the field of vision of the two people. The top of the mountain also emitted puffs of smoke from time to time. The mountain was red, with red veins scattered on it, as if they were solidified magma. This looks like an active volcano, and I don't know when it will erupt. After walking for more than an hour, the two of them arrived at the foot of the mountain, and a wave of heat hit their faces. It's so hot Kuiyu couldn't bear it after staying for a while, and used her sleeves as a fan to fan herself. Shen Yizi thought of the pine wind stone that Xiaoben gave to him as an apology. Isn't it suitable for the present use? Sure enough, as soon as the stone was taken out, the surrounding area cooled down. It was like a natural air conditioner. No need to spend half of your spiritual power. The area of effect of Songfeng stone is about a circle with a radius of 1 meter. Kuiyu, who was following her, felt it immediately. Sisters Hizi, I feel comfortable following you. Kuiyu once again strengthened her belief in following Sisters Hizi for 100 years without wavering. Let's go around the mountain. Shen Yizi observed the terrain and made a decision. However, not far away, a man suddenly appeared. A large group of fire rats were chasing after her. The rats of the Huanhuo, the body is worthy of a sheep. The fur is fiery red, bright and beautiful, and not afraid of the flames. When a large group came over, it was like a wave of magma flowing down from the mountain. This kind of monster is good at burrowing into the ground and breathing fire. 1 or 2 are fine, but a large group will be difficult to deal with. When the distance got closer and it was clear that the person being chased by the swarm of rats was actually Zhao Fulan, Shen Yizi, who was still thinking about whether to save people, immediately pulled Kuiyu away. Zhao Fulan also noticed them, and ran towards the two of them without thinking, and threw something in his hand. I'll leave the fire lotus to you. Looking like they are accomplices. Although she had a hard time picking the fire lotus, if she could divert the disaster eastward and make Shen Yizi die without a burial place, the loss would not be a big deal. Thinking of this, the corner of Zhao Fulan's mouth curled up. The fire lotus drew a perfect parabola in the air and fell towards Shen Yizi. The main force of the raccoon fire rats immediately rushed toward her. This Zhao Fulan is really insidious, Kuiyu spat bitterly. Seeing several fire rats emerging from the ground in front of them, blocking their way, Shen Yizi cursed in his heart and simply stopped running. He took out Shen Yushi and quickly set up a formation around them. It is more accurate to say it is a formation, rather than a gravity field. During the few days she stayed in Xiahao Cave, she spent most of her time studying this. I didn't expect it to come in handy so quickly. Putting a formation bead into Kuiyu's hand, Shen Yizi also had one. With the formation beads in hand, they are not affected by the gravity field and can move freely. But the raccoon fire rat that broke into the formation couldn't do it. This formation has 3 times the gravity. As soon as it entered the range of the formation, the Huohuo rat was pressed to the ground. Come and kneel 1 by 1, come and kneel by 2. Shen Yizi and Kuiyu have developed a tacit understanding. Without saying a word, they just go up and beat them up. Kuiyu's weapon was a thin sword, but it was as long as the arm and very sharp. When the sword was pierced and pulled out, a fire rat was killed. Shen Yizi's star-shattering hammer was much more when used. As soon as the hammer came down, a raccoon rat was smashed into a meat pie by her. She had a sense of déjà vu as she was playing a game of smash-a-mole. But sometimes you will miss after all. The raccoon fire rat also has the ability to burrow into the ground. So she added another layer of formation to metallize the ground, blocking the way for the fire rats to burrow into the ground. Shen Yizi, Kuiyu, and Xiao Frog, 2 of them and 1 beast, formed a solid iron triangle. All the raccoon fire rats that attacked were unable to come back. Contribution points were given to them for free. Zhao Fulan, who had caused trouble to the east, had not gone far. Originally, she wanted to see Shen Yizi suffer misfortune, but she did not expect that all the fire rats were killed. When he was chasing her before, he was very powerful and made her miserable, but in the end, she was so useless in front of Shen Yizi. Zhao Fulan was secretly resentful and unwilling to leave like this. He took out the last thunder fireball and threw it towards Shen Yizi. Shen Yizi knew the power of the thunder fireball and did not dare to resist. He quickly took out a piece of black armor and blocked it in front of him. This black armor plate was given to her by Xiao Hao, saying that it was the shell he replaced. Just like human babies need to change their teeth, the spinner turtle will change its shell every once in a while. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 430. Each time the turtle shell is replaced, it becomes harder. Xiao Hao put away all the turtle shells he had replaced, and when he gave them to Shen Yizi, he said that they could be used as a defensive weapon, and that they could withstand a full blow from a third-level monster at a critical moment. Because he was in the third level when he changed his shell. Third-level monsters are equivalent to golden elixir stage monks. What is the concept of a full-strength attack by a golden core monk? Shen Yizi has no idea, he only knows that it is very strong. With such a piece of tortoise shell on her body, she felt that her safety factor instantly increased a lot. Kuiyu naturally has one, and even her piece is the hardest piece in Xiao Hao's collection and has the strongest defense. When the thunder and fireball struck, Shen Yizi took out the turtle shell in time. In an instant, the turtle shell enlarged like a cover, covering the two people and the beast underneath. With a bang sound, the thunder fireball exploded with great force. All the Huohuo rats within a few hundred meters were damaged and were blown to pieces. Seeing the thunder and fire and the spreading smoke, the smile on Zhao Fulan's face widened. However, soon her smile could no longer be maintained. When the smoke dissipated, Shen Yizi and Kuiyu were standing on the same spot intact, with not even a single hair damaged. Zhao Fulan bit her lower lip hard. Why? Why is Shen Yizi so lucky? Seeing Shen Yizi running over with murderous intent holding the big hammer, Zhao Fulan hid behind a rock and took out a concealment array. The next moment, her people disappeared. Shen Yizi searched everywhere for a while, but to no avail. Did he run away so quickly? Or does she also have a hidden magic weapon or formation on her body? Thinking of this, Shen Yizi swung his hammer and attacked at will, but failed to force Zhao Fulan out. Kuiyu ran over. Sisters Hizi, has Zhao Fulan run away? It should be, but it's a pity. Back on the hillside, the ground was covered with fire rats. These were all seriously injured and fainted by the explosion. What are you still doing? Many of the fire rats haven't really died yet. While they are injured, hurry up and repair your swords and collect your contribution points. There were not a few raccoon rats killed on the spot, but most of them were only seriously injured and fainted. Now, wouldn't it be easier for the two of them? Kuiyu was about to burst with anger, but when she heard what she said, she immediately reacted. While replenishing the sword, he cooperated with her to damage Zhao Fulan. Haha, sisters Hizi, not only did Zhao Fulan not kill us, but she also gave us so many contribution points. Do you think she is stupid? Zhao Fulan is certainly not stupid. If it were anyone else here, she would have been tricked to death long ago. Unfortunately, she met Shen Yizi. Shen Yizi, who has strong luck. Her plot is destined to fail. Shen Yizi and the three men were easily harvesting the lives of the Huanhuo rats that were stunned by the thunder and fireballs. Zhao Fulan saw the scene from a distance and almost suffered internal injuries from anger. It's a pity that she no longer has the third thunder fireball. Now I don't even dare to show up. because she was accidentally poisoned by fire while picking the fire lotus, and she needed to force it out of the body. When Shen Yizi killed a fire rat that was a few sizes larger, he gained not only 300 contribution points and the materials it exploded, but also a fire lotus. This is probably the one that Zhao Fulan threw over just now in an attempt to blame her. Shen Yizi took out the fire lotus and said in surprise, what do you think this is? Isn't this the fire lotus that Zhao Fulan just threw over? Yes, I found it on a fire rat. Haha, if Zhao Fulan knew about it, she would definitely be furious. She tried her best to harm us, but in the end, didn't the fire lotus fall into your hands, sisters Hizzy? Kuiyu's hearty laughter spread far and wide. Zhao Fulan, who was silently adjusting his breath, heard this and immediately stopped breathing and vomited out a mouthful of blood. Shen Yizi suspected that Zhao Fulan had not gone far, but was hiding in this area, so he never recovered his consciousness. When Zhao Fulan vomited blood, a trace of breath could not help but leak out. Shen Yizi noticed it immediately and his eyes flashed. After taking care of the seriously injured and fainted Huanhuo rat, Shen Yizi winked at Kuiyu. There must be a lot of good things in the Huanhuo rat's hole. Let's go in and take a look. Although Kuiyu was puzzled, she still cooperated with her. Okay. Thanks to Zhao Fulan's thunder fireball, the group of raccoon rats that were chased out earlier were either dead or injured, and the rest ran back to the cave. The two of them randomly picked a cave and walked in. They didn't encounter any roadblocks along the way. The entire volcano seems to have become the territory of the fire rats, with caves dug in all directions, like a maze. Shen Yizi asked Little Frog to explore the path ahead, and took Kuiyu to pick out caves that were wide and easy to walk in. She came in this time not for the treasure in the cave, but to lure Zhao Fulan over and find an opportunity to kill her. This woman was unscrupulous in order to achieve her goals, and even tried to poison the whole city, and then tried to put the blame on her. Just now he wanted to kill her and Kuiyu. How could she let her go? Even if Zhao Fulan didn't bump into her, she would have gone to find her. Now that she had come to her door, there was no reason for her to let him go. Shen Yizi felt relieved when his consciousness sensed that Zhao Fulan was following him. No matter what you see later, don't make a sound and cooperate with me. Shen Yizi sent a message to Kuiyu. Okay, no problem. Kuiyu didn't know how to communicate with her soul yet, but her eyes had fully expressed what she meant. Zhao Fulan followed quietly all the way, thinking exactly the same as Shen Yizi, and wanted to find an opportunity to kill her here. Suddenly, Kuiyu's surprised cry came from the front. Sisters Hizzy, there are so many fire lotuses here, and some have already grown lotus seeds. Then Shen Yizi's voice sounded, I'll pick it. You can help me watch it here. Once the fire rat appears, tell me immediately. No problem, sisters Hizzy, go ahead. Zhao Fulan looked around and saw a large fire lotus growing in a magma pool opposite the cave. Shen Yizi picked one flower after another effortlessly. Zhao Fulan watched, jealousy crawling into his heart. Why was it so difficult for her to pick it? He was also discovered by the Huo rat and chased him all the way. Just as he was chanting, a huge fire rat sprang out from a hole nearby and attacked Shen Yizi as fast as lightning. Kuiyu, sisters Hizzy, be careful. Shen Yizi turned around and faced the particularly fat but agile raccoon fire rat. As a result, I was scratched on the shoulder as soon as I met him. When the fire rat came for him again, Shen Yizi narrowly avoided it, but accidentally retreated to the edge of the magma pool. Seeing this scene, Zhao Fulan was about to move, but she suppressed it. Now is not the best time. After waiting patiently for a while, the opportunity she longed for finally came.